Our next stand speaker is Catalina Rincon. She's currently in her first year as a K-1-2 teacher at Stanley. She graduated in the class of 2006 after spending 9 years here. Catalina received her master's in teaching and early childhood education from American University in Washington, D.C., where she taught and worked in public schools for almost 6 years. Tonight's talk will focus on the experiences Catalina had in teaching school in D.C., which ultimately inspired her to return home and continue her teaching career back at Stanley. Catalina Rincon.
I was 18 years old, and I had just moved to Washington, D.C. to start college. I had been accepted to American University, and everything was pretty exciting in my life. I had never lived away from home. I had never lived outside of Colorado, and I had just gotten my very first job. It was a tutoring job at this place called the Community of Hope. And the Community of Hope was a housing facility for families which had previously been homeless, and provided them with a place to live to kind of transition back into an independent lifestyle and gain that stability again. And in addition to providing them with a place to live, the Community of Hope also provided health care, educational services, and job training. And so I was hired on to be a tutor, and I was assigned to work with this young man named LeVay, who you'll see in the top right. And LeVay lived in a small one-bedroom apartment with his 4 younger siblings and his mom, who was a single mom. And I'd only been working there a couple weeks. I didn't know LeVay very well yet, but it didn't take me long to realize that this boy was really, really behind in school. He was a 5th grader, about 10 years old, and he was reading at about a 1st grade level. Not only that, but he clearly didn't enjoy school. And it was clear that his mom was making him come down to work with me every day, but he didn't want to be there. And so after a couple weeks of struggling through these tutoring sessions with LeVay, where neither of us was really enjoying ourselves, I decided that I needed to try something new. I needed to find a way to connect with this boy who had had a very different life experience than myself. So this one day I was at a bookstore, and I was just browsing for myself when I saw this book that caught my attention, because on the cover was this little boy, and I believe he was from inner city Brooklyn, and he looked like LeVay. He was an African-American boy, and he was trying out for a basketball team. And I immediately thought of LeVay because every day after tutoring, after struggling through that hour with me, he sped off to what we called the game room. And in the game room, we had a couple of different things, but one of the things we had was this tiny little basketball hoop that was probably meant for a 4 or 5-year-old. And he would go in there every day, and he would just shoot baskets by himself. And so I said, okay, I'm going to try something, I'm going to try to connect to him, and I bought this book. So I brought it with me to tutoring one day, and I had it waiting on the table for him when he came down. And he came down, put his backpack down, and he sat next to me. And before even picking up the book, looking at the back cover, maybe skimming some of the pages, before doing any of those things, he turned to me, pushed the book off the table, and he said, "Man, why do you people always need to make me read?" And he was angry. And I said, "Well, LeVay, sweetie, I mean, reading is really important." I said, "One day you're going to have a job, or you're going to go to college, and you're going to need to read." I said, "Not only that, LeVay, but books can teach you anything. You can pick up a book and you could learn about space. You could learn about another country. You could learn about basketball. Pick up a book and you can learn." And that's when he stopped me. And he said, "No, I hate books." He said, "I hate reading and I hate school." And he said, "I don't know why you're talking to me about jobs and college." "I ain't going there," he said. He said, "I'm going to go to jail like my dad." And I think it was at that moment that I said, I have to do something about this. No kid should ever have to feel like that about school, about themselves. So I said, you know what? I'm going to become a teacher. And that's what I did. I got my master's in early childhood education and teaching from American. And then I started working in DC public schools. I worked in a couple different schools, mostly in kindergarten classes. And it didn't take me long to realize that LeVay was not the only kid with this view about school and about life. In fact, there were many other LeVays out there, many of whom were a lot younger and smaller than he was. And it didn't take me long to realize that the schools that I was working in were kind of leading to these feelings that these kids were having about school, because the priority was not on a love of lifelong learning. The priority was on testing, on metrics, on rankings, on perfection, on who could get into the Hall of Fame. I mean, this was literally on the wall in one of the classrooms I taught in, and the kids would work to try to make their worksheet perfect so they could get into the Hall of Fame. And they would compete against each other at age 5. And this shocked me because this was completely different from what I had experienced as a kid. You see, I went to some pretty great schools, one of which was Stanley. I went to Paddington and Colorado Academy after that, but I spent 9 years of my educational life here at Stanley British Primary School. And I absolutely loved going to school. I had fun every day. I got to be creative and try new things. I got to go out into the community and learn about my city, about my world. I got to meet some really cool people that I'm still friends with to this day, some of whom are in this room. And I loved being at school every day, and I got to do things that kids my age would probably never do in their life. I mean, this is a photo from our England trip, and what kid gets to say they went with their entire 8th grade class across the world? And I got to spend every day with some really awesome teachers who were excited about teaching and thus made me excited about learning. They made me confident in who I was as a person, as a learner, and they inspired me to become a teacher myself. I mean, look at some of the people that taught me. Tim Barrier was my 6, 7, 8 homeroom teacher, and I had kind of kept in touch with Tim over the years. He knew I was going into teaching. And after a few years in those DC public schools, I said, Tim, I reached out to him, I said, is there any way I could ever work at Stanley? Is that a possibility? And lo and behold, here I am now. I'm finishing out my first year as a K-12 teacher, and I absolutely love my job. I have fun every day with 30 amazing K-12 students. I get to teach alongside Ann Longnecker and Sally Timmons, my 2 co-teachers. And it's cool because I get to now be a part of instilling that love of learning that was instilled in me here as a kid. And I can see as my kids grow into people who do love learning, and who will continue to love learning, who are creative, who are confident in themselves, who are happy and enjoy coming to school every day. I mean, I think back to LeVay, who told me he hated reading, and this is a room full of 8 new readers excited about getting their book bag and truly happy to have some new books. And as I kind of look back to my 9 years that I spent here as a student, I think I'm doing everything that Stanley taught me to do. I'm continuing to be that joyful, lifelong learner, continuing to be confident and happy in who I am, and continuing to value that community I'm in and teach others the same. And I'm really lucky to have gotten those 9 years and learned all those things I did, and I'm even more lucky to now get to continue that journey as a teacher. And I'm excited to see what else Stanley throws my way. Thank you.